Okay, let me ask you about something really fascinating that you are also excited about, which is longevity, anti-aging. You have donated money to the Sense Foundation. So you have an interest in this whole space of lifespan research. What's your vision here? Or what do you hope to see in anti-aging and longevity research?
I think I hope to see the concept of seeing your parents and grandparents die just slowly disappear from the public consciousness as an experience that happens over the course of half a century, the same way that getting lost in a city slowly disappeared over the public consciousness over the last 50 now that we have smartphones.
The thing you have from Nick Bostrom, the essay pinned in your Twitter, argues that essentially that death is almost unethical. Like the fact that we don't do something about this thing that this in the essay is a dragon that keeps like murdering everybody around us, including our parents and grandparents, is like the fact that we don't try to do something aggressively about that dragon is doesn't make any sense. So you think this is a battle worth fighting, a battle for immortality, or at least longevity?
I'd say absolutely, and I'd say it's a battle where we're really have started over the last 5 years in particular to see the first cracks of humanity starting to make things that look like they'll turn into victories.
Do you think humans can eventually live forever? And maybe as a side comment to that, what technology do you think will enable that? Is it genetic modification? Is it cloning? Is it uploading your mind?
Define forever. Like, are we talking 1,000 years, 1,000,000, 10 to the 14, 10 to the 45?
Well, let's start as I tweeted today. Eventually, everything, the universe will be filled with supermassive black holes. So that forever, maybe like backtracking to where
we'll have 10 to the 16 years to figure it out.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, maybe traveling between the multiverse, between the different universes, the multiverse. I mean, but forever meaning like, millennia.
I definitely think that we can get there. I definitely think that it's the sort of thing that's going to take an insanely huge amount of work. And I definitely think it's the sort of thing where, once we figure out the first crop of problems and like people start living to 150, we'll just realize that there's like 10 other problems that kill you half as slowly and we'll have to do more work. But, the good news is that this is, Aubrey's longevity escape velocity argument that if you get everyone to live to 150 now, then, you have half a century to fix all those other problems as well. So yeah. I'm optimistic for that reason. I think you definitely do not want to underestimate human ingenuity, especially over the long term. Like, just to look at what happens to computers between, the ENIAC in 1950 and where we are in 2020, right? Like, that's a span of 70 years. So, like, both of us, I think, with even just present day technology, I have at least 70 more years to live. So just like imagine what kind of sea change will happen in biomedicine during that time. And the other thing that made me optimistic is that I actually think COVID has been this kind of event that's really kind of pushed biomedicine and especially like activist approaches to biomedicine really into the public consciousness, right? Like it's put people into this mindset that, but like, it's not just like, the bits and tweets that are going to save the world. The bio is actually like super important and huge. And, ultimately what's ending COVID basically, is the vaccines, and the vaccines have just been, amazing. And if you can take that energy and start, and also like this, I think philosophical attitude that I've noticed. Like, I think the way that I would describe the philosophical attitude here, this is going more depth first, is that I think the way that I kind of interpret part of what I would call late 20th century ideology is that there is this mentality that, nature is good and disruptions from nature are bad, and generally you want to minimize disruptions from nature. And like this exists everywhere in the political spectrum, right? So there's nature as in literal nature, and my view is that like the right-wing version of that is markets as nature, right?
Markets as nature. That's
Yeah,
right.
like the way that like that kind of philosophy talks about markets and like the goal of not interfering with them, like it is very kind of like nature styled. And then of course the conservative one, which is like traditional culture that existed before the activists started controlling everything, as also being a kind of nature. But the 21st century attitude and like really COVID has like flipped a lot of minds, because with COVID, what's happened is that, well, no, like it's not, nature is not safe, right? The default is that is like, untold misery and suffering and tens of millions of people dying. The only way out for us is through like basically human ingenuity. And that frame of mind is one that's like much more friendly to the this other change of minds that I want to see, which is like basically treating aging as an engineering problem, right? Like the default is all 7.8 billion human beings that are currently on this earth are going to die, and they're going to live their last decade of life in debilitating pain. And the only way to stop that is human ingenuity. And we don't have that solution yet, but if we work hard, we will.
And more people on the biology side, computational biology, are basically converting the mess of the human biology into an engineering problem. And once that conversion is happening, looking at the genetic code, the proteins, all those kinds of things, once that conversion happens, you can now apply the tools that we know how to solve engineering problems to solving it that way. And then there's also the other version, which is, why do we romanticize this meat vehicle that ultimately is just a thing that carries the brain? Maybe we can more and more convert ourselves into the digital realm. This is where like Neuralink have the brain-computer interfaces and then achieve immortality in the space of information in the digital space versus in the biology space.
That stuff's interesting too. I agree. Again, I think we have enough resources and we should just try all the parallel tracks. It's great that we have people just trying to make our bodies work. It's great that we have people trying to upload or improve brain scanning. It's also great that we have just like people improving cryonics, so like we could just like go to sleep in the freezer and eventually, hopefully sometime in the future, Hal Finney's going to be able to wake up. All of this, and anyone who gets cryogenically frozen today will be able to wake up. But that's all. That's a bet, right? That's the last resort. And then the other interesting thing about the like extreme uploading approach, right, is like we're excited about space. And one of the points that a lot of like science or like hard science fiction types make is that, if you want to explore space, that's a lot easier if you're not a human, right? Like one example of this is that, in the context of humans, we're talking about like, oh, we're going to be able to go to the moon, oh, we're going to be able to go to Mars. But there's this project called Starshot, I believe, right? That's basically trying to send mini spacecrafts to Alpha Centauri. And they literally believe that they're going to be able to get spacecraft over to Alpha Centauri like 4 light years away by like the 2060s. Yeah. No, I mean,
by traveling close to the speed of light. Yeah,
exactly. Like, so the way it works is, you have these light sails, like you basically take these a spacecraft and you shine a laser at it, and the laser is insanely strong, quickly accelerated at 100 Gs, I think it was 10,000 Gs, until it gets to 20% the speed of light, and then, it goes on your merry way, right? So if you want to be in, like personally explore the Alpha Centauri system within like 2 centuries or 1 century, then being a robot is like by far the most practical way to do it, because there's no way that a human being can survive 10,000 Gs. So it's definitely interesting long term, but at the same time, like there's definitely a lot of like psychological hangups and a lot of like deep philosophy that we'll just have to grapple with